My colleagues, I'm standing here before you today on behalf of the 50,000 disabled veterans in the state of New Jersey. As all of you are very aware by now, I'm very passionate about veterans issues. Being a veteran myself, and I care so very deeply about my comrades in arms. When I got elected, veterans issues were my top priority. So I searched the country looking for the absolute best veterans legislation in the entire country. And along that path, I found various different property tax reliefs aimed at disabled veterans. And when I submitted to OLS that I wanted to do a property tax relief bill for disabled veterans, they told me that that type of bill already existed, which I thought was fantastic. Matter of fact, this bill was first introduced back in 2006 by a Democratic Assembly person. It was reintroduced every single legislative session since 2006, with the exception of 2008. As a matter of fact, from 2012 through 2019, Mr. Speaker, you were the prime sponsor of this bill. And from 2016 through 2019, the chairwoman of the Military Veterans Affairs Committee, Assemblywoman Cleopatra Tucker, was a co-prime sponsor of this bill. But here we sit, 16 years later, after this bill was first introduced, and 10 years after you, Mr. Speaker, endorsed this bill and became the prime sponsor, and it has not even been given the courtesy of a hearing. Mr. Speaker, this bill is so unbelievably important. Too often, we approach veterans issues by helping here and helping there and trying to solve little problem after little problem, and we don't go big enough to actually help veterans help themselves. This particular bill will do that. If you're not aware, the VA compensates veterans for their disabilities on a flat rate based on their disability percentage. If you're 70% disabled, you get a certain dollar amount, irregardless of where you live in the country. If you live in Arizona or Florida or Pennsylvania, you get the same amount of money as if you live in New Jersey. But our property taxes here are so astronomical and so much higher than everywhere else that it disadvantages our veterans. And the money they receive from the VA to help them live is eaten up by the property taxes here in the state of New Jersey. This bill, which will give service-disabled veterans a property tax exemption equal to their disability rating, will change the game for service-disabled veterans here in New Jersey. It will level the playing field so that our disabled veterans here in New Jersey will get the same benefit from the money they receive from the federal government as the service-disabled veterans everywhere else. I have worked this bill over, Mr. Speaker, and Chairwoman Tucker. I have gotten so much input, and I have made change after change after change to make it the best possible version of this bill that is fiscally responsible, and it is laser focused on putting the money in the hands of those people who are most in need. There are other veterans bills out there that try and help veterans on a broad scale, but too often they try and help too many people with too little money, and effectively the services become a mile wide and an inch deep. This bill will legitimately forever change the lives of at least 40,000 of the disabled veterans that reside here in the state of New Jersey. Our disabled veterans, Mr. Speaker and Chairwoman Tucker, deserve this bill. And at a minimum, they deserve it, the respect to have it heard in committee. Right now, Mr. Speaker, in the Assembly of Veterans Affairs Committee, there are 196 bills waiting for consideration. Of the 196 bills, there are only 8 bills that have more than 10 sponsors, none of which have more than 16, with the exception of one, and that is this bill. This bill has 52 sponsors in the Assembly and 26 sponsors in the Senate. The bill is ready to go. It has by far more sponsors than any other bill in this committee, and in fact, in any committee right now in the state Assembly or the state Senate. But the chairwoman refuses to put the bill up for a hearing. Now, this is not the first time we're hearing about this, Mr. Speaker. I'm not trying to dupe anybody. I'm not trying to go around anybody and bring something to the floor in which I have not gone through due process before. I've sent 3 letters to Chairwoman Tucker asking that this bill be heard in committee. I met with Skip Camino last year, Mr. Speaker, to inform him about the bill and try to get you to help me to move this bill in committee. I sent you a letter, Mr. Speaker, requesting that it be posted in committee, and I copied the majority leader on that same request. All of those, by the way, have been met with no response. Not one response to me on this bill with 52 sponsors that would do so much for our disabled veterans. All I ever wanted was for this bill to be given a fair shake in committee. That's all I'm asking for. That's all my letters asked for. And I think it really deserves it, Mr. Speaker and Chairwoman Tucker. But you left me no choice except by ignoring me, except for me to make a motion to relieve it from the committee process so that this very, very important bill could be heard on the floor. But before I do, I want to say this. This is where the rubber meets the road. Will you support vets or not? Do you put your name on bills as sponsors and co-sponsors so that you can glad hand people at the VFW and the American Legion and say that you support veterans? Or do you do it because you actually care? If you actually care about the disabled veterans in the state of New Jersey, then you will help me to relieve this bill from committee today and bring it to the floor. Now is your chance to be part of something huge. We will be the best state by a long shot for service-disabled veterans in the country. We will be a destination for service-disabled veterans to come here in the state of New Jersey. And we should all want our veterans, all veterans, service-disabled veterans included, to want to come and live amongst us. And those who are here already, not to ever, ever leave because they can't afford to be here. My colleagues, I ask a lot of you, but today I'm really begging you to join me and put aside whatever party differences or whatever you might be asked to do to keep it in the committee and recognize the fact that I have done everything right. And this bill is being ignored for no good reason. I implore you, please, please, join with me today and let's get this bill out of committee and onto the floor for debate. The chairwoman's going to get an opportunity to stand up after this, and that's her right, and I'll applaud her, whatever she has to say. But I hope that if anything comes out of her mouth, that we can't move it today, she doesn't want to move it today, that she will at least commit to giving this bill a fair shot in her committee. After all, that's all I'm really asking for. And I think the service-disabled veterans, the entire veteran community, and me as a member of the State Assembly deserve that. Mr. Speaker, having previously given 24 hours notice as permitted by Rule 10:23, I motion to relieve Assembly Bill 888, which provides immediate, much-needed property tax relief to our veterans from the Assembly, Military, and Veterans Affairs Committee. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.